Hello, everybody, and welcome back to EdTech in the Classroom from the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and today we're going to be talking all about Microsoft Forms. We're going to go through an entire beginner's course. We're going to make sure all the links are in the bottom. And if you have any questions, don't forget to check out everything in the description and hit that timestamp. We are going to be deep diving into the application, how to use it, how to create great questions, make quizzes, and so much more. So stick around for this episode of EdTech in the Classroom. Now, before we begin, the first thing that we want to talk about is where to find Microsoft Forms. Number one, you can simply go into any search box and type in Microsoft Forms, and you're going to be able to see a website just like this where you can sign into your Microsoft account. You are able to access Microsoft Forms both on the free and paid versions, but we're going to find out in a second. There are a few differences. The best way to also find Microsoft Forms is by clicking on office.com and signing in. Now, when you're in Microsoft Office, you're going to be presented with all of the different applications from the Microsoft Office suite. Your screen might look a little different depending on which plan you're subscribed to. And what we're going to do is we're going to click over here onto Microsoft Forms. And here we have our Microsoft Forms dashboard. You can see we've got our recent, we've got forms that we have pinned, we've got forms that are shared with me. These are forms that other people have created and have given me the ability to also edit. And then we've also got forms down here from the variety of different groups or Microsoft teams that we're in. Up here on the left, we can create a new form or create a new quiz. Now, before we get started, we want to talk about how to create a form. There are two ways of doing that. The first one is to come up here and click on either the new form or the new quiz. But there's another option that might interest you, especially if you're familiar with the Google Forms world. And that is actually to start by creating an Excel document. So here we are in Microsoft Excel, and you might be thinking, why do I want to start with Microsoft Excel? Why not start with a form the way that I can in Google Forms? If you're here in Excel, you can click on the Insert tab and click on the Forms menu, and here you can create a new tab. Just note, this is actually the opposite step of what you would do in Google, where you create the form and then produce the spreadsheet. Here, we want to create the spreadsheet and then have the form spring out of it. So that's one way if you want to automatically connect the form and the spreadsheet data. We're going to be going over this method here in this whole beginner's tutorial. In our next video, when we go over some more of the advanced features, we're going to talk about how to use an application called Power Automate to really do the reverse and so much more. So don't forget to check out and do a search for that video coming up. Here I am. I'm going to click on Forms, and I'm going to click on New Forms. And now here I have Microsoft Forms. Really nice, really simple. You can see over here in the middle, I've got two different tabs, one for questions and one for responses. And we're going to deep dive into that as we go through. And again, all the different things that we're going to talk about today are all detailed in that description area below. So don't forget to check the timestamps if there's things you might want to skip around on. Over here on the right, we've got three different panes plus a three-dot menu. We're going to click on Preview, and this is where we're going to actually see what the viewable form is. This is what our users are going to look like, and I can see it in computer and in mobile. If I click on back here, I can change the theme. We'll talk about that in a second. I've got my share menu. We're going to go through that. And then also in my three-dot menu, we've got our settings, some really neat multilingual features, a print form, feedback, and some terms of service. We're going to deep dive into all of that, but let's get into our Microsoft form, and we're going to start with our first question. Up on top, we've got the name of our form. It says Book 1. That correlates with the Excel sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, my first Microsoft form. And I'm going to enter a description. Now, I've got my description, I've got my title. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to add a new question. Now, when I click on the plus sign here, I've got a variety of options. Choice questions, where you can do multiple choice. Text questions, where you can do a short answer or a paragraph. Ratings questions, dates, ratings, Likerts, file uploads, a net promoter score, or we can add a new section. Let's deep dive into all those things. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to add a text question. And I'm just going to say first name. And I like to do first name separately than last name because when we're creating these forms, we want to think that every single question ultimately becomes a column inside of our spreadsheet. To have my second question, I'm going to click over here on text and I'll just type in last name. Now you'll notice that when I click on these questions, if I want, I can make this a required question. I can make this into a long answer or a paragraph question. If I click on the three-dot menu, I can create a subtitle, and I can say, what is your first name? I can also add restrictions onto this, and that's where you want to say the answer to this must be exactly, or the answer to this must be in between. If you're familiar with Google Forms, they call that response validation. So these are two different things. If you're looking for a little bit more information about response validation, I'm going to leave a link right up above here on our title. We've got a great video on Google Forms response validation for you. Now we're going to get a little bit more in detail with these features, again, in that more advanced video that we've got coming up next. So I'm going to turn this feature off here. And if I wanted to, I'm going to add the branching column. Now, we're going to get all of these things as we go through here. So I've got my first name, I've got my last name, and now I'm going to do a choice question. And I'm going to say, what is my favorite flavor of ice cream? And I'm going to add a couple suggestions here. And I notice they've got red, yellow, orange, green. That's nice. Not exactly what I'm looking for. I need here vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. Now, of course, as we're going through here, if I wanted to add another option where you can actually choose whatever one you like, I can do that too. And now it's basically turning into an open-ended. You'll notice here that I've got the circles. That means you can only choose one option. But if I wanted to, I can click on the button here and they go to the squares where I can have multiple answers. Now, we're switching back over into the Excel doc just so we can see how this whole thing goes together. You'll notice over here, it automatically creates an ID. This would be the number of submissions. So my first submission on the form, whoever it might be, is going to be ID 1, and then so on and so forth. It automatically tracks the starting time and the completion time and actually tells you how long people are taking to take your test, quiz, form, whatever. It tracks the email address of the person if you so desire. We'll talk about that in the settings. And it tracks the name. Now, these are all the things that Microsoft Forms automatically tracks. You notice some of the things are a little different than what Google Forms does. And then you notice over here at column F, G, and H, these are our questions. Our first name, last name, and what is our favorite flavor. So we're going to jump back and forth here as we go through and as we start adding data. So we're going to add another question here, and I'm going to say, do you like Microsoft Forms? And I can add this in 5 stars. I can add this in 6 stars. And if I want to not do stars, I can do numbers as well. But I think I'm going to click on stars. Now, the next question that we're going to do is going to be a date question. When are you taking this Microsoft form? Now, it is going to ask me for the date. Now, I can't do anything like this right now when I'm in the edit mode. But if I click over here onto preview, you're going to notice I've got my name. I've got my last name. I can choose multiple options here. I can now choose how many stars I have, as much as I like Microsoft Forms. And for this, if I just click on this, it automatically pops up a calendar so I can choose the date that I want. These are very useful things and helps keep you guys organized, especially once you're looking at that data. You'll also notice here, the mobile version looks amazing. I love Microsoft Forms and how it looks on a mobile device. Let's add some more questions. I'm going to choose a new question, drop this down, and I'm going to add a ranking question. So how do you rank Microsoft Forms? And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. And if I say required, we can click on that. If I click back over here onto preview, how do you rank Microsoft Forms? I can add this. I can move these things around. So it's a neat little option, and it's something that's a little bit different here. I'm going to click on back. Let's add another question. If I click on the drop down, we've got these Likert charts. Really neat, really handy here. What do you like the most about Microsoft Forms? Now, again, with all of these, I can drop this down. I could always add my subtitle to this, but let's just say ease of use. And I can say great for mobile. And over here, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I can make this bigger, I can make this smaller, I can change this however we need to, but notice over here when I click on the preview, I now have the option to change all my different answers. Because it's the circle, I can only choose one answer per question here. All right, let's add some more questions here that you can see how easy this is. If I want to do a file upload, okay, this works very similar to Google Forms. It says a new folder will be created in your OneDrive. So this is going to create a folder in your OneDrive account, and everything's going to be captured. So let's say that you wanted to have somebody fill out a form or a quiz and add a picture of their work, or add a image, or submit a video. This is a great way of doing that. So I'm going to click on OK. Please send your video files today. And you can see here how many files do I want. I can change the number up to 10. And what's the file size? I can actually do a 1 gigabyte file. So if I've got a really huge file in my Google Drive, I can submit that to this form, and it'll automatically make a copy into somebody else's Microsoft OneDrive here, and it'll all work out easy. Okay, so I've got that. I don't want this to be a required question anymore. If I click on a new question, I can say Net Promoter Score. How likely are you to recommend us a friend or colleague? Let's change that around. How likely are you to recommend Microsoft Forms? And we can say not likely at all or extremely likely. Notice down here this popped up. Estimated time to complete is 4 minutes. I kind of like that. It allows the user to know how long it's going to take for them to make this form happen. So one more thing here. I'm going to add a new section, but I don't want to do it here. I actually want to come up here and I'm going to say first name, last name. And right here, what I want to do is I want to add a new section. So let's see. Click on here, add new section. So here I have my new section. Now what I've just done is I've broken this down into 2 different parts. If I've looked here at the preview, you can see now on section 1, I just have my first name and my last name. And now when I hit on next, I've got the rest of my questions. So you can use these section breaks to make it not look as overwhelming of a quiz or of a survey for your groups. Let's do that again. Let's see, maybe I want to do something after number 5. I hit add new. I add section, okay, and so now I have a section. Please fill out these questions carefully. So you can see again, if I hit the preview button, I've got first name, last name. I've got a few pieces of information here under my new section. And then how do I like Microsoft Forms? Please fill out this section. So that's how you go through each of these different question types. And there's one more that I actually want to add on here, which is the branching. And the branching basically shows off if I choose this answer, then go to this section. If I choose that answer, then go to that section. So I'm going to jump back here. And you know what? I'm going to mess around with question number 3. And let's see, in order to do this, I want to create another section down here just to show you how this is going to look. I'm going to click on another section here. So I'm going to say section number 4. So I've got section 3, I've got section 4. What we want to do is we want to set this up so that way, depending on what answer you choose, you might go to section 3 or you might go to section 4. And so this is a good if you want to say, do you have any more questions about this topic? Yes. Go to a section that asks what questions do you have? And if no, jump to the next section. It keeps everything organized. I kind of call these spider charts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here onto my question 3 where I have the multiple choice, and I'm going to click Add Branching. Now this actually opens up a new interface. You can see it's a little different. The menus came off. But what I want to show you is right here, what is my favorite flavor of ice cream? And depending on where I am, I can say go to next. So if I hit vanilla, maybe that's going to take me to question 4 or section 4. Maybe over here, it's going to take me to section 1. Maybe over here, if I click on strawberry, it says end the form. So let's test those things out. I can also change this to say that if I finish off this section, go to the next one, or go to a different section, or end the form. So you can see I can do a lot of advanced things with these spider forms, or spider charts, as I say. So let's take a look. If I click on the preview, I've got my first name, I've got my last name. If I click on strawberry, notice that the word here is submit. So if this says vanilla, you've got this information. If I've got chocolate, I've got the submit button. And if I hit strawberry, I've got the submit button. So interesting. This is a little different, if you notice, than Google Forms. It does shift back and forth, but it's a really neat feature here, and it's one of the reasons why I prefer using Microsoft Forms for all the things that I do here on TeacherCast. So now we have our form. What I want to do is I want to start creating some data. So what I want to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on the share button. And if you notice here, I've got a few different options. I can take this link and copy it. And if I copy it onto a new tab, I now have my form. I can answer this, hit next. I can hit vanilla. I can rank my love for Microsoft Forms. When are you taking this form? Here. I can hit next. How do I rank Microsoft Forms? It's, of course, a 3. What do I like the most? I'm not going to upload anything today. I really like it, and I'm going to hit submit. Now, notice, as soon as I do that, over here in my form, I now have data coming in. I see I have 1 response. It took me an average of 23 seconds to complete. It is an active form. This is important if I want to ever turn the form off. I can hit these buttons here and I can change this open. I can view my results. And down here, you'll notice this is a big summary of all the different question types. And I love that when I hover over them, I've got dynamic information popping in here. So really, really neat stuff that you can find. But remember, I also have this connected into Microsoft Excel. So here I am in my Excel spreadsheet. I've got all the information and everything is in here. The more submissions that I get, this just gets updated. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make this form look a little bit more pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here under themes, and you'll notice I've got a few options. I can certainly click on these little squares and I can change what this background looks like. I can change the colors, or if I'd like to, I can always customize this theme by adding different colors, by using the hex, or by adding a graphic. And I love the fact over here that if I type in school, I can do a search and I can always add a brand new graphic into this Microsoft form. That's a really, really neat feature to help make your Microsoft Forms stand out from everything else. If I click back on that share button, I can do another copy of this link, or I can also shorten the URL if I want to be sharing it off in an email or in a text message. Other options that I can do here to share this, I can grab the link. I can download a QR code and send this as an image, maybe in a Teams message or in an email, or stick it on a presentation slide. I can embed this really easily on a SharePoint site, on a website, on WordPress. I've got a couple Microsoft Forms already on TeacherCast, or I can click on the email button and it'll automatically open up Outlook or your email choice and automatically send things out. Otherwise, I can share this as a template where somebody else gets a copy of, and if I needed to add somebody on here to help edit this document, I can hit the button and share a collaboration link with somebody else. Let's take a look at the last thing over here in the menu. We've got our 3 dots. Settings is a really important feature to look at. It says who can fill out this form. Now, notice by default, it says only people in my organization. But what I might want to do is I might want to say anybody can respond. You notice that right now, because it's only people in my organization, because it's recording my name, back here in my Excel doc, that's how they're getting my email address, and that's how they're getting my first name and last name on here. So that's how all that works out in our Microsoft form. But if I want, I can also restrict it to one person per response, or I can say only specific people in my organization. I can also say this is accepting responses. Remember over here it said active. If I click on settings and if I click on accept responses, it now shifts over and says people are not able to fill this out. I can change the message response after somebody hits the submit. I can even choose the starting and end date. That's really, really neat. So I can automatically have my form or my quiz or my test turn off after a certain date. I can shuffle the questions. I can even show a progress bar. And I can customize that thank you message. Now, lastly, down here, we've got a couple different options. Allowing users to keep a receipt of their responses means that after you hit submit, they get an email that says, would you like to get your answers? I like that idea. And then the last one here is get an email notification from each response. I like to turn that on. I like to know when people are filling out things on my form. That means I don't have to go and check the form constantly. So I'm always going to make sure that I have that stuff turned on. The next thing I want to show off here is the multilingual steps. I am such a fan of the fact that you can take your Microsoft form and you can actually create it in multiple languages. Now, I can show you this to the best of my abilities today. If I click on here and if I click on multilingual, it actually gives you an option to choose the primary language. I can add an additional language, and I'm going to type in here Espanol. And what I want to do here is I want to edit my language. Now, this here basically allows me to take the form and manually put in a different language. So right here, instead of saying my first form, I can type in what the words my first Microsoft form looks like in Spanish or any language of your choice. And the more different languages that you had as options there, your users are going to be able to choose between those. It's a really, really neat feature, and it's something that I'm certainly looking forward to be using this year with my teachers and my students. Now, the next thing is a feature that gets asked about an awful lot, the print form button. What does it look like when you print a Microsoft form? If I click on the three-dot menu and then over here on print form, you will notice that my print menu pops in, but the form looks really nice. You don't have a lot of wasted space. You have everything nice here. I can save this as a PDF. And when I save this and when I open it up, everything looks nice. Your students can actually take this Microsoft form and hand it in a paper format. Really, really nice. And I love the fact that it's so easy to use. Now, the last thing about Microsoft Forms I wanted to showcase is back here in office.com under recents is this form that I've been working on. Now, what I want to do is I want to make this easier for me to find next time that I want to go in and look at this form. I can do a couple things to it. If I first click on this little push pin, I can now pin this form. You'll notice over here there's a column for pinned. If I click on that, it now shows my Microsoft form. The next thing I can do is click on this three-dot menu. I can open this form in the browser. I can copy it. I can move it. I can remove it from my pins. So the last thing I can do here is I can remove this from the list. Now, maybe you've got a bunch of forms from a previous school year that you want to no longer see. You can certainly do that, and these forms go away from your view. You can always find those forms by clicking over here on the bottom right under All My Forms. And you'll notice these are all the Microsoft forms that I have on this particular account. So as you can see, Microsoft Forms is a dynamic application for creating forms, tests, quizzes, surveys of all kinds. There's a variety of great question types, and it's so easy to customize and make the perfect form for you. I want to show you a quick example of how I'm using Microsoft Forms on TeacherCast. Now here we are on TeacherCast's contact form. Now I've got a variety of options for people to reach out and find me depending on if they're a teacher, a coach, somebody in the ed tech world. But I've decided to take my Microsoft form here and I've embedded it onto my website platform. In this case, I'm using WordPress. As I zoom in on here, you'll notice I've got 3 things in this first section: my first name, my last name, and an email address. If I click on next, I have what brings you here today. If you're an educator, a business, a conference organizer, public relations, you see the ideas. Now for each of these, they actually go to a different section. Remember we talked about those spider charts. If I say I'm an educator, the next thing that you see is, hey, thanks for being here. What can we do to work together? What's my role in education? What's my teacher website? However, if I say I'm a conference organizer, I have this broken down to saying, I'm interested in inviting Jeff to come to or, hey, what's the date of your event? If I back this up a little bit and I say I'm a podcaster, that's going to take you to what's the name of your podcast, the website for your podcast, the podcast Twitter account. So you can see everything here is designed so it's one form. All the data goes into one spreadsheet, and it's really easy to create just one chart and keep track of all of that data. If I click on next, it says what's on your mind today, and now I've got this submit button. Now, what's really interesting about this chart is not only does it send me an email with all the information, but it also goes through an entire automation process that sends an email, puts information into Teams, takes it on a journey through Microsoft lists and a few extra places. How do I do that? Well, you're going to have to check out our next video on using Microsoft Forms for the advanced user. We're going to be having that one come out very shortly, and we're going to make sure that we put all the descriptions all the way down below. So don't forget to check out all the links and check out all the great stuff. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button here on the TeacherCast channel. We would love to have you guys be a part of the TeacherCast Educational Network. And that wraps up this introduction chapter on Microsoft Forms for Beginner. If you have any questions about anything, please don't forget to contact me. On behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classroom and continue sharing your passions with your students.